There has been an awakening. Have you felt it? It's time for a review of Dragon Ball Daima. This week reviewing the episode titled Awakening. And we kick off this review, as we always do with these reviews, by talking about the positives and the headline positives. I think that this episode was a great swan song for Super Saiyan 3. That moment was just fantastic. You know, it's a little early, don't want to spoil anything, and I love the big twist that we get towards the end of the episode. So we're going to discuss this review rather semi-linearly because, look, I want to talk about the thing, you want to talk about the thing, I want to talk about the thing, we all want to talk about the thing, but it's way too early into the video to talk about the thing, and also due to the fact that, you know, we have to be fair and respectful and talk about all the other great moments within this episode, and then we can talk about the negative stuff later on, because a lot more craft and effort has gone into this series than just that moment. So let's discuss about the fact that I think that this episode is a fine swan song for Super Saiyan 3. Now, some of you may find that odd that I'm referring to this as being a swan song moment. This is the last hurrah for Super Saiyan 3, but you know, let us be perfectly honest, we all know how things go in Super, pretty much from the moment that Super begins, or at least from the first major action sequence. Super Saiyan 3 just becomes, well, a bit of a joke. It just becomes a measuring stick. It ends up becoming, oh, this is a villain that's even beyond the Super Saiyan 3, oh my god, and then things build from there, and to a degree, that's what ultimately ends up happening within this episode. However, I really do like how this is all put together. Okay, sure, this might not be the last time we see Super Saiyan 3 as far as this entire series is concerned, because linearly speaking, yes, it does end up coming up in what is effectively a few episodes' time, seeing as that Super comes after this. However, you know, there might be a new Super Saiyan 3 equivalent at some point in Super 2, if that's what ultimately it's going to end up calling. Or calling it, I should say. Whether or not you can really count it as being the same is a whole other matter, but, and of course it may be some time before it actually ends up happening, but in this episode, this is the moment we get to see what Super Saiyan 3 is truly capable of. A pure display of its power, its strength, and its speed, which is something that, let's be honest, we never really got to see in Z, to be honest with you. Super Saiyan 3 as a power was always one of those, it felt like that should have been what the entire storyline was building up to, in the way that Kaioken was, in the way that Super Saiyan was, and all the different variations of it were. In the Buu saga, it was just yet another idea that Akira Toriyama had that ultimately didn't really go anywhere, and whilst I do like the fact it ended up illustrating just how terrifying a threat Majin Buu was, let's be honest, for the most of its time within Dragon Ball Z and there in Super, it was just ultimately a lot of Goku standing around in a field or floating about in space screaming, and then maybe about a couple episodes worth of action before it ended up fizzling out. And in this episode we do get to see what it's truly capable of. This is the kind of ultimate form, the ultimate power that we know of or knew of at this point in the series. So to see at its full potential, to see its full power at a point where Goku probably was getting more of a handle on it and probably could have used it for longer, I think is just spectacular. And it is more than just being spectacle. This whole action sequence that it takes part in makes it feel as though it is, or it was, the definitive Ne plus ultra power, that this is as far as things can go, and if this doesn't work, oh by god, what do we do next? Because something I will definitely say in this episode's favour is the fact it does away with the Dragon Ball / broadly anime action bullshit thing where everyone just stands around and waits for the main hero to do the big fighting bit, apart from the bit where, oh, it looks like hero's going down, then anyone jumps in and then everyone intervenes with it. No, in this action sequence, in this episode, for the good first third of it, everyone's pitching in as best as they can do, which is great to see. And once again, just how it's all put together. This is how the fight with Jiren in Dragon Ball Super should have looked, showing just what a massive gulfing power there is between these characters, and ultimately how Goku and his friends have to try and team up, try and overcome them. Now, one may argue that the stuff that we then got with Majin Buu was a bit too goofy and ended up undermining the severity and the drama and just the tension within this whole sequence of events. But on the other hand, you know, there is that statement of, well, it's fine, I think it works fine enough in here, but Again, it's not like a joke moment was really needed at this time. We were seeing just how powerful Super Saiyan 3 could truly be, and I don't think we needed a wacky, goofy moment with Majin Buu. Maybe we could have had that at a moment where it looked like Goku was down for the count, and we needed something to pick our spirits up, but its placement feels a little bit strange, but it does go to show just how potentially powerful Buu could end up being. I mean, remember the other week where he fought Goku to a standstill? Turns out he wasn't even really powered up to do that, and this week he powers up for the first time and he ends up becoming a genuine threat, something that seems at least on par with Super Saiyan 3, if not slightly beyond that, if it weren't for the fact that he just burns through his energy almost as soon as he ends up getting it. The whole thing with the spiky hair, with Majin Buu getting that, I think that's more of a gag. That isn't what this Super Saiyan 3 equivalent power for him really is. He's doing that because he thinks it makes him powerful. He thinks that's the thing that you have to manifest to get that power. And I will have to say is that the whole thing with Majin Buu throwing the cookie to do, it weirdly enough does end up foreshadowing the stuff that we get with Neva, because with Neva it is him as a third party using his power to enhance Goku, and here it is Majin Buu using his power, which is running really fast to the off license to get the cookie to power up Majin Buu. It's goofy, it's silly, but I do kind of like it. My big problem with it is the placement of it. I think that maybe it should have been further into the episode when things were looking a little more desperate, and then we could have this great moment of, oh my god, Majin Buu, he's the power, he's the one who ultimately saved the day. A little bit of goofiness with the whole spiky hair thing, and then ultimately it fizzles out, and then that sets the stage for what comes next, which, again, I really want to talk about, but we're not quite there yet. Again, this is like the grand finale for Super Saiyan 3. This is us seeing it in its best light. It is a action sequence that shows us just how fast it is, just how powerful it is, both physically and in terms of ki power, and it ends up creating a great contrast with Gomah, and how he has to try and just keep drawing on more and more energy in the hope that'll be enough to try and get one over on Goku. The fact of the matter is that, look, I would have been perfectly fine if the entire episode was Super Saiyan 3 Goku fighting Gomah for the most part, with a few extra bits thrown in here. But when it was clear that Super Saiyan 3 wasn't going to be enough, and given just how early the stuff with Majin Buu ended up happening in the episode, that ended up making me think, okay, so what's the twist here going to be? Because as predicted in previous weeks, last week was going to be the start of the battle. This week was going to be the episode where it looked like our heroes were going to pull ahead, but ultimately wouldn't end up doing so, either within this week's episode or next week's episode. And then we'd have maybe a final twist before the final episode, and then the big final victory in the final episode. And that's kind of what ends up happening, because this week, Super Saiyan 4 is back. Okay, in terms of timeline, this is technically Super Saiyan 4 is here for the first time. But you know, on a meta level, Super Saiyan 4 is back. Look, I just want to say, as a little side note here, I love all the fake leaks and all the bullshit speculation that there has been for this series, up to and including for this week's episode. Everything we've had in the lead up to all of this, I have loved it, because I am someone that, as you may or may not know from my other videos, I seem to be something of a magnet for spoilers. Almost every series I want to see gets spoilt for me at some point or another leading into all of this. So to go into this week's episode and just see all the videos and all the articles saying, yeah, they'll never do Super Saiyan 4, it's never gonna happen, don't count your chickens, it's not gonna happen, it's not happening, our leak confirms it isn't happening, and then it happens, so whoopsie daisy for them. Almost literally every single leak that I've seen for this series has been wrong, and you don't know how happy that makes me feel. Of course, this is no hint for you to start leaking stuff to me in the here and now, because I don't want to see it, and especially because we're only a couple episodes to the end of this, but I'm going to go on a limb and say the heroes win this. But anyway, we're getting distracted now. I will be honest, even with those leaks aside, I was decently sure, or at least I felt deep down, that I didn't think we were ever going to see Super Saiyan 4 back full stop. Whether that be in this series or just in the series more generally. It felt like it was always going to be this thing that was going to be unique to GT, and given GT's canon but not canon but sporadically canon existence. It always ended up feeling like a case of that they're not going to, but they might do as a nod, but if they are, it's going to be like a quick visual thing rather than a full thing that we ended up seeing. But this felt like if you were going to do it, this was the moment to do it. For moments I'll discuss in just a moment, but they did it. Once again, this series that so many people, so many broadcasters on this goddamn channel shrug off, it did it. It makes the big power move. It does the major moment. Oh, sure, we can argue if this kind of fan service is needed, and if really, in the grand scheme of things, this series needed more substance and fan service to get people talking about it. But at the end of the day, this is something that fans have wanted for a long time in some form or another. And I suppose this does end up meaning that we will end up getting, Vegeta will end up getting it at some point by the end of this series, and then that will end up being the Gogeta fusion thing like we saw in GT. I mean, on a meta level that makes sense, because that would certainly get a lot of people talking, and it really encourage a lot of people to give this a second go, or just to give it a go in the first place. But look, when this series first started, and this is something I discussed in the mid-series review, is that, and it's something I mentioned on and off, is that I've always felt that Dragon Ball Daima was a celebration of the entire cloth of Dragon Ball. Not just the original Z, but also GT and Super, that this was a tribute to the entire thing, that this wasn't just a spin-off for the sake of making money and making merchandise and making DLC, that this was meant as a clear tribute and nod to all the various different aspects of this series, from the various different television programs to the various different mangas that we've had, and arguably to a certain degree the Xenoverse stuff as well, given the design of certain of the characters. And this is the episode where GT truly and unambiguously gets its moment in the light. Now, yes, some people talk about how Daima is ultimately a better GT, which, let's be honest, it is. But this is a moment that we just end up saying, look, this is a little thing for all of you who love it. This is a moment for all of you that maybe you don't like GT, but you really like the Super Saiyan 4 thing. This is the representation that that series gets in this here and now. And I'm really here for it. As someone who has softened on GT as the years have gone by, who has certainly taken to it a lot more than I think it's fair to say that a lot of other people, and a lot of other broadcasters in this site have done, it is just great to have this moment of, this is a big Dragon Ball celebration. We're celebrating all of it, even the stuff that certain fans don't like, and I really do enjoy that. I will take this kind of celebration of canon over certain other series that I've been watching more recently handling it. Or I should say how other series have been handling this kind of thing, but that's a whole other discussion for all of a time. And there has been some discussion, I think it is the Masako X channel that came up with this theory to begin with, or people that are connected with them, which is that Neva is something of a self-insert character for Akira Toriyama. That this is effectively his character, his representation in this series, and given what happens in this episode, and given how his appearance has been throughout this series, it does feel like that there is some credence there. Intentionally or not, this does feel like his presence in this episode, what he does, just plays into that. Because this series as a whole has done many things that fans have wanted to see for quite a while. Super Saiyan 3 for Vegeta, more lore about Shin and the Kaioshin and the Makaioshin, a look into the demon realm, and getting a more canon version of Super Saiyan 4, albeit with a different design. And if you take the mindset that this never is an avatar for Akira Toriyama, this is effectively him saying, here's one for you, here's one for everybody. I've done something that everyone has wanted to see to some point or another. This is me making it canon so that we can all enjoy it. And I really do like that aspect of it. And then how it is presented thereafter, it has the level of flair and energy and power behind it that you would want from a new Dragon form to have. It feels more powerful here than ever did in GT. The action sequence that we get thereafter with it truly being here is amazing. The bit with the Kamehameha, once again making that power itself feel powerful and definitive, then having the thing of Goku in like light speed reactions, just managing to use it a second time, or actually get to use it in the nick of time, just to blast into the face of Gomah, was fantastic. Of course, yes, it couldn't quite end up lasting. This is episode 18 of 20, and unless we had character chatter to just fill things out, yes, it might well come into play in the next episode, or maybe the episode after that. We don't know yet, but we'll soon see where all that goes. But I will just say is that when it came on screen, when it became clear this is what we were doing, I just shouted, "Oh, fuck!" Because they actually did it. Like, I know that a lot of people want Super 2. They've wanted Super 2 more so than they've ever wanted any of this. And even now, they might think, oh, this is neat, but still give me Super 2. But I will just bear in mind, everyone that just wants Super 2, that by doing this, by Akira Toriyama doing this, it's bringing Super Saiyan 4 into the main canon. It is putting that well and truly in the toolkit so that it can be used and expanded upon at a later point, if that is indeed what ends up happening. We'll discuss a little bit more of my thoughts about Super Saiyan 4 in due course just shortly, but it's back now, and it's at a part in the timeline where it could be used in Super 2, or whatever they end up calling it. It is back, and it can be expanded upon and changed upon. We could probably end up seeing a Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan 4 or something along those lines, but that's discussions for future adventures. And at the end of this episode, we get the big twist with Glorio ultimately doing his job. Maybe not to the extent I thought he was going to end up doing. We don't have the full-on heel reveal for him, but he takes the Dragon Balls and he goes on to make the wish for Dr. Arinsu. And well, given that he's making the wish in a fictional language that none of us in the world can really understand, we don't really know what wish he's made. Now, I'm sure that by the time you're watching this, there's going to be a dozen or so videos trying to translate it, trying to use past examples of the Namekian language and the Namekian tongue to try and translate it in the here and now. But for me, I think there's only ultimately two results of it. He either wished to undo the wish that turned the people of Earth into children, or he has made a wish to turn the bad guys into children. Now, of the two, I'm going to be honest, I think that only the first one makes sense, because that is the one that would end up helping Goku and the others the most, and it would allow them to use the full breadth of their powers. It would give them more time to recover so that they can properly get one in and try and take care of Super Gomah, whatever the hell he's supposed to be, even better. It also would end up meaning that they can use the Earth's Dragon Balls if anyone dies, because we are into the final episode, so we don't know who may or may not end up dying. Of course, in the intro, it does show Goku flying on Nimbus with a couple of Demon Realm craft surrounding him, which suggests that there will be a scene of him being an adult in the Demon Realm. Or, of course, that just might be like an ending image, like, oh, the day is saved, and Goku and his friends are flying along, and cute. And maybe that'll be the case, maybe it won't be, but I think that of all the possibilities, we're more likely to see adult Goku and his friends being the ones that end up defeating Gomah, using the fullness of their powers, more so that it'll end up being someone that's done by the kids. But we'll see. Like, this is a series written by Akira Toriyama. Anything could end up happening. Of course, as far as stuff from the intro is concerned, we still don't know what that bird-like thing that we end up seeing, like, towards one of the intros is going to end up being, so we'll see with that. I have a feeling that it might be Neva in the end, which, if we take the point of view that he is like a proxy, an avatar for Akira Toriyama, and if we do get the moment where Neva ends up passing away, yeah, I can easily see that being an emotional moment for many people that made that connection. With that said, however, let's get into the negatives, and well, I'm going to be honest, as much as I like the Super Saiyan 4 stuff, I think that its introduction into this needs a bit more of an explanation. How did it come into being? Why did it come into being? What specifically is it that Neva did to make this a thing, to make this a power? Because we need to know why that is, so that we can explain away as to why Goku then did not use that power in Super. Maybe it needs magic to harness. Maybe Neva is tapping into a part of the Saiyan biology that the rest of them haven't figured out yet. Maybe it's Blutz waves. We don't really know at this point, but I think that that's something that needs to be clarified, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going, oh, well, now you see, this is a thing that just, once again, Dragon Ball Daima is making Dragon Ball Super non-canon, unsubscribe, and all that kind of crap. And I can understand that, but, well, I can't understand it because I think it's a blue childish thing to say, but I still think it needs an explanation. Beyond that, I think that just never giving it to him feels a tad cheap. I know that some people may find it controversial to say, but as far as Super Saiyan 4 unlocking moments go, I think that GT ultimately did it better, if we're going to make the comparison between the two episodes. In GT, it was the end result of emotional stress and anger and rage and everything we know being a kick-off point for powers for Super Saiyan, whereas here it's just done by a feat of magic, and as such it feels a tad cheap. But we'll see how it all ends up washing out eventually. The other thing that I'm not terribly keen on, but this is a minor thing, is that I felt that Gomah just getting bigger to become more powerful feels a tad odd. Like, I think that when it became clear, oh, there's a new power coming up, boiling up within, and I would have liked it to be more of a new form, more so than him just getting more bigly. You know, like it just feels like maybe that's just the thinking on his part of, oh, I need to get more powerful, thus I need to get taller to end up doing it, but it feels a bit cheap. I just hoped that when we saw that bit of like the evil Tetarus eye or whatever it is flaring, always gonna have this new spooky scary form, but he didn't. He's just bigger even more so we'll see where that ends up going. I'm interested to see where we end up going with all this. As far as the overview is concerned, I thought this episode was fantastic. I really did enjoy it from the start to finish. Yes, I think that the bit with Majin Du was a bit poorly paced, or period placed I should say. It was a comic relief moment at a moment that we didn't really need comic relief. Maybe a little bit later into the episode, maybe, but if we left it later into the episode, that might have undermined the Super Saiyan 4 bit. But we'll see. This does set us up for a potentially spectacular next couple episodes. We'll soon see exactly what the betrayal at hand is here. Because I don't know. It would be. I think of the two episodes, this one should be more likely called Betrayal, because of the fact that this is the episode that seemingly is going to be the betrayal of Arinsu by Glorio. But by that same token, next week's episode, it can't just be Glorio getting one over on Arinsu. There has to be an extra element here to make that work, because you wouldn't name an entire episode over just a minor aspect of it. Oh wait, we've done that several times over thus far, and most recently with the episode Degasu. So we'll see! We'll soon see. But anyway, well, that's done, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. Big X1 back once again, and he says, this one was better than the last one, this referring to the episode titled Gomah. But Gomah being the main villain feels like a strange decision to me. Thank you for your comment, and I have to say that I do still agree. Like, at the end of the day, the reason why Gomah's the big bad in all of this is because of out of a misunderstanding. Oh, sure, he was still a bad dude, but he wasn't necessarily a bad dude, so it's gonna feel weird when he ultimately ends up getting blasted out, but unless he does something super evil to then justify it, it still ends up feeling a case of, yeah, he was kind of tricked into doing all of this, but we'll see. We'll soon see where all that goes. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode this week, and of course, that moment. Thank you all for listening, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!